Do you think it's possible to replace your pen when you have a gun in your hand and you're protecting millions and millions of people? Why? What is the reason behind that? You're tired? Any justification? Or because you want to inspire people in a different way? I have the questions, but I don't have the answers because I hold a pen, but I never held a gun in my life. But we have today with us not only a bestsellers author, Dennis N.Griffin, all the way from the States, but also a man who had protected his country in each and every way and put his life in danger for a lot of people. Why today he's an author? What does it say to us? Not because he's a best-selling author, but having a life full of adventures, having a life full of interesting, however, dangerous missions. What does he have to say in his books, and why writing? So I'm going to just introduce everybody to him. Of course, he needs no introduction because all of you know him. And I want to say, hi, Dennis. How are you?
Nataly, a pleasure to be on with you.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. I'm so happy to have you. And it's so interesting to have someone like you to be with me talking about this inspiration that you have. So Dennis, what inspired you to put aside the gun and start writing?
Well, first of all, I retired.
Oh, that's good.
So that was one motivation. The second thing was, after I retired, I realized I was a very horrible golfer. I gave it a shot and realized how bad I was. So I said, I need another hobby. So I decided to try my hand at writing.
And becoming a bestseller author, I mean, I heard the word casino and then Dennis N.Griffin, and I connected these two because I loved the movie with Sharon Stone and Robert De Niro. It was like amazing. It was one of the best movies ever for me. And like when I talked to you and I checked, I was like, oh, Dennis N.Griffin, he wrote a book after they shoot the movie and it was out there. Why would you do that? It was so inspiring for me. And I went and I saw that you were in the law enforcement and you wrote so many other books, but this story of Casino, I mean, it's so glamorous. It's so like so full of glitterati scenes and moments. What is your comment about it? I mean, you didn't like the movie or you changed things because it was not true. How did it happen? Because for me, it's like inspiring the movie Casino.
Well, I loved the movie. And what happened was in 2001, I was writing mystery thriller fiction.
Mm.
And I was just treading water. I wasn't going anywhere. I was, and I was thinking maybe I need another hobby. Maybe I should get out of the writing business. And a lady I met at a writers' conference told me that I should switch to nonfiction with my background, police procedurals. So I ended up working with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department to write their history. And through that book, I knew, Sin City, you had to have something about organized crime in it. So I asked one of the detectives I was working with, I said, what would be good for me to put in the book about the mob? And he said, write about Tony Spilotro.
Yeah.
And I said, who is Tony Spilotro? And he said, did you ever see the movie Casino? And I said, yes, I have. He said, well, Joe Pesci's character was based on Tony Spilotro. And he said, it's about 90% accurate, the movie. So I wrote about Tony Spilotro. I did some research and wrote about him. And I became intrigued with that whole era in Vegas that was captured in the movie Casino. And that opened a lot of doors for me.
And when you say that you wrote about Tony Spilotro, and there's another person I think you wrote about him too, Andrew. I don't know if I'm spelling it right. Andrew Di Donato, right?
Yes.
So these people, how are you inspired to write about them? You know about them because you are in law enforcement in Las Vegas, or because you know about them, or you know them in person, or people who know them? What is the connection to make it so true, so honest?
Well, what I did with through my book called The Battle for Las Vegas, The Law versus the Mob, that's the true story behind the movie Casino. And through that, I got to meet a guy named Frank Collada. And he was Tony Spilotro's street lieutenant in Las Vegas, and they were childhood friends in Chicago. And Frank ended up going in the witness protection program, and he was contacted by Nick Pileggi, the screenwriter for Casino. And he agreed to come on board and be the technical consultant to the movie. And he appears in several of the scenes as a hitman. So I got to meet Frank first by telephone and then eventually in person. And Frank and I agreed that I would write his biography.
Wow.
The book was titled Collada. And when that book came out, I started getting inquiries from other former mobsters wanting to know if I would write their books because they liked the way I did the Collada book. Andrew Di Donato was one of those people.
When you say that mob members, they love that you write about them, aren't they scared? I mean, aren't they scared that, I mean, that people will judge them? They want to be out in the open, I mean, in books, their characters, or because you might give them some empathy or support and be fair?
Well, you've got two different types. Now, you had Frank Collada, Andrew Di Donato, and others I've worked with who ended up becoming government witnesses. So you can say on the one hand that, yes, they were bad people in their day, but that they reformed or found redemption. They found the law and they gave up the life. Then you have other people I've worked with, mobsters, and they continue. They would not cooperate with law enforcement if their lives depended on it. And they're the old school mobsters, I call them, because they still believe in the loyalty and the oath and omerta and all that kind of stuff. So I've worked with both, with the guys who have ended up becoming government witnesses and have gone to the law side, and also with guys who continue to be dyed in the wool, old school mobsters.
You just said two important words that just caught my attention. You use the word loyalty, and you use the word old school, and you said that some of them just changed their lives and they became like they are connecting with the government and they changed their lives. So the others, old school and believe in what they did, but they were loyal. I'm not protecting here anybody. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just interviewing. So
Sure.
How come these people changed their lives? Because they were scared, because they failed, or they need a second chance, in your opinion, with your experience, or because in the not in the eyes of the law, but as a human being and as an author, with your conscience, do you think that they are like people that cannot be trusted because they did things and they changed their way? Do you trust these people?
As a matter of fact, I do. Not all of them. I'm constantly dealing with people from that side of the law, the other side of the law. I've caught some of them lying to me. And then as soon as I catch them lying to me, our relationship ends immediately. but let me talk about Frank Collada for a moment. Frank and I, after our meeting back in 2005, I believe it was, um, well, we became business associates. I was his writer and he provided the story. But over the years, we became friends. And Frank passed away last August, and it was really a devastating loss for me.
May
And
his
I,
rest in peace.
I trusted Frank more than I would any politician. Not that he was not a bad guy. Yeah, that says something. But with Frank, I knew where I stood. I didn't always like what he said. I didn't always agree with him. But when Frank told me something, that was the way it was. And I, like I say, I trusted him implicitly. And the other guys, but again, I've also caught some of these people in lies. And when I do, we part company.
So when you say that you trusted some of them and the others you didn't, and you became friends with some of them and others you caught them lying, is this based on experience or on sixth sense, or because you know how to watch what they're doing because you have an eye of a law enforcement trained person who knows how to investigate? What is this based on?
It's a combination of the above, all of the above.
Oh.
And what I do when I am contacted by someone looking for a writer, I tell them right up front that if it can't be proved, it won't be used. So I want to be able to prove what they tell me actually happened and is accurate, because my reputation is on the line as well as theirs. So, for example, and this is an example I always give because it's very blatant. One individual who sounded like he had a great story, and I was intrigued by it, and I was researching it further, and I had given him my spiel about, I want total honesty. If I catch you fibbing, we're history. And he claimed credit for an unsolved bank robbery. And it was a nice story. However, when I did my research on him, I found out he was in prison at the time of this robbery. Obviously, he couldn't be in two places at once, and I trusted the records of the prison. So I told him, I said, I'm sorry, but if this was a lie, how much more?
Yeah, because a liar has to have a good memory, right?
Exactly. So that was the end of my relationship with that individual. But that's what I do. I research and I ask my co-author to provide all the documentation, such as court records.
You are working with somebody else, co-authoring with the co-author who has a story to tell, and you write. And when you do this, how would you describe in general, not only Dennis N.Griffin, okay, I'm just saying in general, the relationship between the mafia and the enforcement through the years, from your personal point of view? How is it? I mean, is there some kind of deals go on, or friendship, or we cannot answer that question, we can just skip it, or we can just say that some of them, they try to get some help or become informants for what kind is it? Or we can just skip the question again. So
no, I want to answer it. It surprised me actually, because these people, the lawmen and the mobsters, were obviously adversaries. The lawmen were trying to put them in jail for life, and the mobsters were trying to stay free and prosper in their illegal activities. So they were enemies. But if you ever saw the movie The Godfather, one of the famous lines.
Who hasn't?
But one of the famous lines is, "It's nothing personal, it's strictly business." And I found, for example, when Frank Collada, I was doing a local TV show in Las Vegas about Las Vegas and the mob. Frank Collada was going to be in town. I invited him to the studio, and I invited 4 former lawmen who had actually brought him down and investigated him. I was anticipating, or I shouldn't say anticipate, but I was concerned that when I got them in the studio together, the fists might fly because of the animosity and what had happened between these people. And I got to tell you, I was shocked at the way they got along. It was like a bunch of old buddies sitting there talking. They busted each other's chops a little bit. They tweaked each other, but it was all good natured. It was all cordial. And I said, my God, I said, I never would have thought that after what these guys, went through for years of hunting each other, or one hunting and the other trying to get away, that they would have this relationship. And I started doing a lot of these meetings and sessions with former mobsters and law people. And that was the way it was. It was just like right out of the Godfather, nothing personal, strictly business. They had Frank Collada had his gig he was doing at the time. The lawmen had their responsibility, and they did it, and they didn't carry a personal grudge. There was no personal animosity between them. And I was surprised. However, I do want to say that was Frank and some of the other former mobsters. But I've talked to the officers, FBI agents and officers who investigated Tony Spilatro, who was deceased, who was murdered. And I got to say, there was no love lost there. I don't think, had I ever been able to get them in a room together, we would have had a whole different ball game. So not every mobster and lawman or former mobster ends up as buddies, but a lot of them did. And did you ever see the movie Goodfellas?
Yes.
Henry Hill?
Goodfellas, Welcome to America, Godfather, Scarface. Especially where Robert De Niro is, I'm there.
Henry Hill and I got to do a lot of events together. I never wrote a book with Henry or about Henry, but we did a lot of events together. And Henry, no matter what people thought of him, could pack a house. If Henry Hill was going to be on the menu, it was going to be a standing room only crowd. And I remember I did the event at the Las Vegas Clark County Library. Every January was Mob Month. And every Tuesday in January, they would have an organized crime presentation. And I set up some of them, and I was served as the host.
I didn't get a presentation. What do you mean? I mean, they teach people. What is that?
Well, we would have former mobsters and lawmen on the same panel, and they would interact and they would answer questions from the audience. Questions like you're asking me now.
Like encourage people to be gangsters more. Like, look, where have they been? And now they're not in jail. They're here and talking to us. What would they do to new generation?
That was the intent was not. It was to educate.
The intention was not to go there.
Exactly. It was not to glorify the mob life. In fact, it's the opposite.
Oh.
Because these guys would tell what they had gone through when they were wanted, when they were on the lam, when they were finally caught and went to prison. So there was a lot of the downside that came out. And the lawmen, when they had their chance, to talk and answer questions, they always emphasize that as well. That if you're a gangster, if you choose the mob life, you're eventually going to end up in prison or dead. There's no happy endings.
I've heard that somewhere else too. Somebody else saying that.
Yeah, so they conveyed that. But I know when Henry was there, the auditorium we used at the library held, I think, 350 people. Wow. They had an overflow room down the hall with a closed circuit TV set up that held another 100. And when Henry was there, you couldn't get a seat in either place. So Henry, like I say, no matter what anybody might have thought of him personally, about his lifestyle he had led and all that stuff, he was a magnet, boy. If he was on the schedule, you could count on a full house. And he was funny. He would he had a great sense of humor. Of course, he did have an alcohol issue, and there was always a kind of a crapshoot as to what was good. When he would show up. First of all, I always had to sweat out, will he be here at the event? And secondly, what kind of shape will he be in when he gets here?
Wow.
So that was always a little bit of an intrigue, wondering
And I hope it went
what-
everything okay, right? In the end, it was fine having all these people. I mean, he did not disappoint you.
And no, the one thing, in fact, what I'll always remember was Henry came in. We were due to start at 7 p.m. And Henry came in about quarter of. So I was relieved, of course, to see him there. But I took one look at him and I knew he had probably had a rough afternoon. He looked like he'd been on a little bit of a binge. But that was okay. That was Henry. So as I'm going through, I had to include all the panelists, all the other mobsters and the law enforcement people. I couldn't just concentrate on Henry. But I knew that he was having trouble staying awake.
Wow.
And everybody had a microphone in front of them. And I'd look out of the corner of my eye while I was talking to somebody else. I see Henry's head slowly heading down toward the microphone. Then he'd catch himself and he'd snap back up. Yeah, wake up. So finally, he fought it. But finally, one time he couldn't catch himself and his forehead crashed into the microphone.
Oh my God.
And it sounded like a gunshot. And all of a sudden, people started screaming. They thought there was a mob hit going on. So one woman dove under her chair screaming, "Oh, don't kill me, don't kill me." And of course, that woke Henry up when his head hit the microphone. And one lady was trying to get out and she was headed for the door. And Henry says, "You, miss, where are you going?" And he caught her, scared her, and she says, well, I'm going to the ladies' room. He said, "No, you're not. You know too much."
Oh my God! I would have been scared
So that was a memorable evening with Henry Hill and the boys.
That's what did she do?
Well, the whole place broke into laughter, and then she finally started laughing herself. She got the joke, so it was okay. It worked out okay.
Because you said ladies, you reminded me of something. Like in one of your books, you're concentrated on. I want to say the word because for me, words are just words. I'm not scared of words. I'm scared of act in life when we do it the wrong way. That you talk about call girls and hookers, and most of the time in other books you don't. So what intrigued you to base a book and an outline like this comparing to your other books? It's like about hookers. Is this a message, empathy, awareness? What is it? What inspired you? What was that second that you just said, okay, I'm gonna write about hookers, cool girls? What was it about? What happened to you? Something happened in your life? Come on, give me something.
The cover of the book that you're talking about.
Yes, wrong numbers. Yeah.
Okay, and what I always get asked when I do any kind of a presentation, of course, there hasn't been so much with the COVID stuff, but people want to know is after the casino era, after mobsters were driven out of the ownership, the hidden ownership of the casinos, are they still in Vegas?
Are they?
And yes.
Okay.
My stock answer is when you have that much money, such as in a place like Las Vegas, you're going to attract the other element. Okay. So just because they were out of the casinos or could no longer have this hidden ownership and control of the casinos, did they leave? No. A lot of them went into the adult entertainment business.
You mean adultery or adult entertainment?
No, adult entertainment, such as call girls and hookers.
And the words, using my brain and seeing what comes out.
Topless clubs, all that kind of stuff. So a former investigative reporter for Las Vegas TV named Glenn Meek contacted me, and he said, would you be interested in working with me on a book about the mob and the call girl racket, the adult entertainment racket? And he said, it's a great story. He said, I got all the information. I just need help with the writing. So we ended up doing the book together, Glenn Meek and I. And that was the title, to what happened in Vegas after the mobsters were driven out of the casinos. And it was a very entertaining and interesting story. So that's it. Wrong numbers.
Entertaining, or writing the story was entertaining?
Well, it was educational.
You met these women. I mean, you met some of the cool girls, hookers, whatever they're doing. Did you meet them in person? You know about?
No.
No, you didn't.
By email and telephone.
So you know about their pain, but you haven't met them.
Correct.
Okay. So
Glenn Meek had personally met some of them.
Why didn't you meet? Wouldn't it inspire you more to write, because you know the body language, the expressions? Did you avoid that, or they didn't want to meet you because you were in law enforcement? What was the reason?
I didn't avoid it.
Give me something here, please, Dennis.
I didn't avoid it, but I was no longer in Las Vegas.
Oh,
so it was just a very difficult situation to meet.
It was a coincidence, not because you didn't want to.
Exactly. Had I still been living in Vegas, trust me, we'd have been nose to nose.
Now you're in Las Vegas. Did you meet any of them after you wrote the book? Anybody came to thank you that you talked about their stories?
No, I've gotten some emails, but nothing in person.
Do you think they are scared to be judged?
I don't know if that's true. I think it depends on the individual. Some of them, you know, depending what they're doing with their lives today, maybe put things behind them. Others are kind of proud of what they did. They said, "Hey, I was class act. I was in popular demand." So, okay. Yeah. So there's
their own perspective, right?
Exactly.
So, were you ever in the room with con artists, like real family mafia members, and you had a fight or something happened? I mean, all these years that you have been law enforcement member, you have been law enforcement, you have been private investigator in Navy before then when you were young, and then did anything happen? Some kind of argument, something that still in your head?
Probably the closest that where I was personally present was when we were doing an event in Las Vegas, and Frank Collada was there, Henry Hill was there, Andrew DiDonato was there, some law enforcement guys, retired FBI agents, and Henry Hill was drunk. And he spilled a beer in Frank Collada's lap. And Frank told me, he says, "Denny, I got to get out of here." He says, "Or I'm going to kill Henry." He said he won't walk out of here alive. So Frank was very aggravated and agitated, and he did. He left him. He didn't leave Las Vegas, but he left the session, and didn't come back until the next day when Henry had sobered up. But that was the closest I ever saw to two former mobsters.
Personalities are in which movies we see them? Remind me.
Well, Henry was Goodfellas. Frank was Casino.
So if some of them become informants, right?
Yes.
Yes. Do you trust them when they tell you something?
I trusted Frank implicitly.
Not Frank. I'm not talking Frank. I'm talking in general. When mafia gang members, they decide to become informants to the law and can work with the government against others, do you trust everything they say, or there has to be recorded proof for you? Do you trust what they say verbally? This is what I mean.
I don't trust everything they say. automatically. It's not automatic. However,
Why?
you understand that when they cooperate
Oh,
with the government, they go in the witness protection program. To get in witness protection, you are vetted by the government. They will not make a deal. They will not give you a reduced sentence or that type of thing. They will not make a deal with you unless you have told them the 100% truth, because what you tell them is probably going to be used in court. It's going to be used to indict other people. It's got to be accurate. So they are well vetted by the FBI before they are allowed to go in the witness protection program. So they have a certain amount of credibility from that aspect, that they have been checked out.
So you're saying it's the level of trust of information is because of the laws that keep them there not to lie, right?
Exactly. And then I do my own research as well. For
But
example,
still sometimes they would lie, right?
Yeah.
I want to see this. I mean, are all of them bad and are all of them good in the government, in FBI, and vice versa?
All of them were
I'm losing you.
bad, are no longer bad.
Can you say it again? I lost you there for a second.
I said all of them were bad at one point. Some of them have changed their lives around. Some of them have found God. They're born again Christians and so forth, looking for redemption. Others are still a little bit shady, and I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if they went back into crime at some point.
It's amazing, but we're short of time because we want, to finish and wrap this up with talking about you as Dennis N.Griffin, your message. How do you inspire people from your heart, from your mind, from your experience, or you just feel that you are blessed with the ability to write and you do it because
again,
I lost you there.
Everything I do when I'm working, it's all of the above, and the thing is being upfront with the people I deal with, and we have to have a mutual trust. If I don't trust them or they don't trust me, we're not going to work out. Trust is the big thing. Being honest, even if they don't like what I say, they know where I stand. I know where they stand. That's got to be part of the deal. And I just want to show you a couple of other covers. Have we got time to show you?
Yes. Go ahead. I want to make it like wrap it up, but it seems that you have the books with you, and yes, survival. From childhood sexual abuse victim to world boxing champion.
It's the story of Vinny Curto, and it's a remarkable story about the sexual abuse he suffered. And the purpose of this book is to try to educate people who are being sexually abused what they need to do. They need to stand up and they need to get help. Okay, so that's that one. This, wow. I told her that I've dealt with some old school mobsters.
Dennis N.Griffin with Family Business, The Life and Times of Joey, the Fixer.
Silvestri.
Oh.
Joey Silvestri is one of the old school guys. He wouldn't give law enforcement the time of day if his life depended on it. And a very nice guy, very unique individual, but that's just where he comes from. This.
Bringing down, oh my God, culota. It's shining. A memoir by David Bowman with Dennis N.Griffin.
David Bowman was an informant for the law, and I never found out about this till last August. That, or actually 2 years ago now. It would be 2019.
Even when you were working on the book, you didn't know about it.
All the Collada books I did and all the books about the Spilatro era, I never heard about this guy until Frank Collada introduced me to him. He said, here's the guy that was an informant for the FBI and the Las Vegas Police Department that got me convicted.
Are there people in the FBI who work in FBI? I mean, legal FBI members, but they are not good people. Are there any bad people?
Are there any what kind of people?
Bad people.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I love the answer.
And this last cover I'll show you.
Survivors. Bring. Okay. Shocking true stories about America's pursuit of police transparency and justice.
And this is an anthology of people whose cases, or not them, but they are the survivors or victims of murder and suspicious death, where the cases went cold and were maybe botched by the police investigation, where there was inadequate investigation or cover up.
How much these stories affect you in your real life? Do they?
Yes, they do. They are extremely, well, I get emotional with a lot of them when I find out what happened to these poor people, the mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and children of the victims, and what they go through. In fact, I've got one case that I've been working on now since 2010, working with the mother of the deceased, and we become very good friends.
The person is deceased because he's a mafia gang member or a victim or from FBI?
No, this guy was this deceased. Her son was a victim. He was a soldier, and he died mysteriously. And we think we know who did it, but we're trying to get the law enforcement to take a second look at it.
Oh, so you're working as an author and also as an investigator, helping the person in. Wow. So
exactly.
You're like heart and soul doing this at the same time. I mean, like you are there like their angel at the same time. You're bringing out the good and helping them, not only writing, but just solving still crimes, right?
Exactly. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's but it does get very emotional sometimes because there's some real horror stories.
So the books that you wrote, we see them in Scarface about these characters, right? And Godfather and Casino. What is the most important message that Dennis N.Griffin wants to inspire and tell to our audience today, to give them?
Regarding true crime, I think the big message is the old saying, crime doesn't pay. If it does, it's on a temporary basis. You live high for a while, but eventually you're going to take a fall. And there are very, very, very few mobsters who end up retiring and living the good life. They're dead or in prison or on the run. So it will be my message. If you're considering which way to go, if you're a young fella and you're considering which way you want to go, think about it very carefully and choose the right path. And that's the message I would like to send.
And if you go back in time, is there anything you would change in Dennis N.Griffin life, being in law enforcement, Navy, and bestsellers author, everything all together? Is there one thing that you would change? It's okay if you don't say what.
Yeah, there is. I'd have started my true crime writing a lot earlier.
But it's never too late, because there will never be bestsellers, because you're bestsellers author.
That's right. That's right.
Right. I'm so honored to have you with me today, Dennis. It was amazing, the interview. And I think that a lot of people are going to be happy to see that these movies that we watch from Hollywood, who are the people truly inspiring these stories and these characters? Either they are ex-mob gang members who today are living a good life and they change their life, or people like you who had already served their country and now they are serving the country in another way with their pen, because they keep on doing what's good. But I'm saying that this is an honor to have you. a great honor. And thank you so much for being with me. Guys, go out there and watch for Dennis and Griffin books, amazing books, because as inspiring as he is, definitely a best-selling author will inspire you to have the best stories of your life. Thank you for your time, Dennis.
And thank you, Natalie. It's been my pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. I'm so happy to have you.